Welcome from FOLU. When I am welcoming you from FOLU, it's a welcome from multiple organizations: CEW, Council for Energy, Environment and Water; TERI, Revitalizing Rainfed Area Network; and WRA India, the Secretariat for India, FOLU India, and globally also WRA is a secretariat. So we are all collectively welcoming you for this event. Just, I heartily welcome Ms. Martine Bottheim, the Deputy Head of Mission, Norway Embassy to India. Thank you for making it. This is the second time you are participating in the FOLU event, I think. Yeah, thanks for the support. I welcome Mr. Vijay Kumar, the FOLU India Lead, to the event. I welcome Dr. Shubhada, the Director General of TERI. Thanks for making your time to join us. And Dr. Sabya, the Head of Revitalizing Rainfed Area Network. And Dr. Ruchika, the Executive Program Director, WRA India, FLW, the Food, Land, Water team. And Seth Cook, Asia Coordinator of FOLU India. And all our delegates, I don't want to list out the whole names because it may take a little more time. Just two words along with my welcome. It's a very special moment for us, for FOLU, because it's the first time actually in our overall knowledge product we are releasing a movie. And a hearty welcome to Arjun Swaminathan, who joined us to make this movie. He's the director. I think he deserves a clap before it. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So during the beginning of the International Year of Millet, we just thought how we will be part of the International Year of Millet, and we thought we will shed light to some part of agriculture or life which generally ignored, but nowadays people start looking at that's women. So I was checking just 2 days before as well. Is there anything existing in public domain much related with women and millet? Not much has been seen, especially in the backdrop of International Year of Millet. So this is something we proudly present, I would say. And once again, welcome everyone, all our panelists. We have Vijay, who is the one of our global ambassador. We have Shubhada Deshmukh, one of our partner organizations she's co-leading. We have Mamta Borgoyary, my old friend, very close friend, and she's leading the She Change Climate. We have Shweta Khandelwal. When we were inviting Shweta, we thought she will be coming from some organization, but she's now with JHPIEGO. I was thinking about how to pronounce it, JHPIEGO. And we have, that's our panelists as well. So Pallavi, shall we release the movie, officially launched? So let me, it's just a small for a photograph, and this. I would like to call Ms. Martine to the dais, Mr. Vijay Kumar, Dr. Shubhada, Dr. Ruchika, Dr. Manish, and Arjun. Arjun, please. And two people who have worked behind this. One is Soni RK, Dr. Soni RK, and Pallavi, my colleagues. So it's just a ceremonial launch of this movie. Oh, sorry, Sabya. One second. Sabya, I'm so sorry. Sabya, please. Sorry, that list is... I will request you to do it. Come. So I request the delegates and chief guests to open up the cover and show the posters. This is the official launch. I'll join. Thank you. Thank you very much. Vijay, we will have a group photo a little later. Yeah. So we are launching. Yes. Thank you everyone for joining us. Now, now it's the time for the screening. Lights off. Let's watch it.
So that's Vijay Kumar, FOLU India Lead, and Deputy Head of Mission, Ms. Martine, from the Norwegian Embassy, to deliver their addresses. If we may please have you on stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It seems that I get the honor to open the floor after this wonderful movie. So, FOLU India, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, it is really nice to be with you here today. And it was such an interesting movie showing the role of women in conserving different varieties of millets and bringing millets-based food to the table. And I was involvement of women has really yielded good results. And I saw that, the power of women coming together really came across as a strong message. And the result was actually that women were recognized and women were empowered. So congratulations for lifting that message. And we should all ask ourselves, isn't it time that the invisible women became recognized and get to play a larger role in community? And this film also reminds me of the Malayalam movie, The Great Indian Kitchen, which is also a great account of women's strength and resilience and the invisible and challenging role that women play in the Indian kitchen. So Norway is an active supporter of FOLU. And I have heard much from my colleagues at the embassy about the important work carried out by FOLU on sustainable food and land use economy in India. And this is the second FOLU event that I am very delighted to attend. Currently, as we speak, country of COP28 is going on in Dubai, the climate change conference. And it is then relevant to note that Food, Agriculture and Water Day, at that day, countries recognized and declared that unprecedented adverse climate impacts are increasingly threatening the resilience of agriculture and food system. A declaration was adopted by over 150 of the country partners, recognizing the profound potential of agriculture and food systems to drive powerful and innovative responses to climate change. The declaration affirms that agriculture and food system must urgently adapt and transform in order to respond to the imperatives of climate change. The declaration also notes the essential role of international and multi-stakeholder cooperation, funding institutions and non-state actors in responding to climate change. I think that FOLU is an excellent example of such multi-stakeholder cooperation and that today's event is very relevant. Would you all agree? So, Tvinnereim, the Norwegian Minister of International Development, has recently launched a strategy for promoting food security in development policy. It is titled Combining Forces Against Hunger, a policy to improve food self-sufficiency. Tvinnereim, she visited India a few weeks ago and she met with local female farmers in Punjab. An overall objective of the government's development policy is to fight hunger and increase global food security. We are integrating our development and climate efforts. The strategy recognizes that we have to transform the world's food system in order to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals and to reach the climate targets contained in the Paris Agreement. The world's small-scale farmers hold the key to sustainable food production, but they need knowledge, technology and investments, and they need access to local markets. I have learned that India has a rich tradition of conserving, growing and consuming millets for many centuries, as we could also learn from the film. Women play a vital role in conservation of millet varieties. I am impressed that India is actively promoting millets on every major events. We saw that very clearly here in Delhi during the G20 presidency. And we have copied this at the Norwegian Embassy. So we have also included a millet-based dishes when we host events at the Norwegian Embassy. I think that it is important to remember that almost 10% of the world's population, some 828 million people, have too little food on a daily basis. In the short term, fighting hunger is a matter of humanitarian aid. In the medium term, developing countries must build their own food systems. Countries must achieve national food sovereignty. Food sovereignty in each individual country will mean greater food security globally. So congratulations to India for having achieved food security many years ago. Except for few food crops, India is largely self-sufficient and is able to feed a large and growing population. It is impressive that India is also the biggest exporter of rice and some other crops, contributing to global food security. At the Norwegian Embassy here in Delhi, we have also recently increased our efforts towards food security. Last month, we signed a new cooperation agreement with the World Food Programme in India. This project will support small farmers, especially women, in the state of Assam to address the adverse impact of climate change. The project aims to equip small farmers with adaptive farmer practices, diversification and livelihood expansion to withstand adverse impact of climate change. We also have a new program focusing on farmer-managed seed systems and community seed banks. Fridtjof Nansen Institute, a leading Norwegian NGO, has partnered with Indian agencies to improve the capacity of community seed banks through a national platform. We have an ongoing project between Norway Institute of Bioeconomy Research and Indian partners on climate-resilient agriculture in Assam and in Odisha. So we are very supportive of your work and of the message from this movie. So thank you so much for inviting us, and thank you for having us here today. I wish you all the best for the rest of your celebration of the International Year of Millet and today's discussion. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you very much for that address and such kind words. I now request Mr. Vijay Kumar for his brief address. Thank you so much.
Madam Martine, Deputy Chief of Mission Norway, Dr. Vibha Dhawan, Director General Terry, Mr. Ajayveer Jhakad, Dr. Jayhari, Dr. Ruchika Singh, and all other friends and colleagues who I see before me. I think this has been a very good event. And I, of course, was associated with the making of this movie. And as the ideas came, you know, the story and the narrative of the movie changed over time. And what we see here is the final product, but it is substantially different from where we started. And I think the discussions we had within the group, amongst ourselves, was very useful in fine-tuning the narrative and in bringing it out not as a kind of sentimental movie about women and millets and agriculture, but actually to really showcase that what we now need is to bring science to bear on millets in order to make it the food of the future. It was the food of the past, but how do we make it again the food of the future? And I think in some ways the movie brings out that the reason why millets went out of favor because of the Green Revolution was partly because, of course, the productivity of wheat and rice is much higher, but also the drudgery that was involved in processing of millets was something that could not be continued economically in the face of much easier processing of wheat and rice. So I think the challenge before us, which is a subtext of the movie, is how do we bring science to bear? How do we bring science to bear on different elements of the story of millets in order to make it the food of the future, because it has the potential, particularly in the face of challenges from climate change and the need to ensure better sustainability of use of natural resources. How do we improve the productivity of millets? It may not compete with wheat and rice, but significant improvements in productivity will make it a much more economically sustainable crop. And then how do we make millets grow in wider regions of the country where there is more variability of resource endowments? And how do we ensure that millets are able to meet the adaptation challenges of climate change in the future? It's clear that millets have the potential to withstand drought and variations in moisture, but that does not make them automatically capable of withstanding future climate change challenges. And so there's work to be done there on the science of it. But all said and done, I think what this brings out is that while all these challenges will be addressed and will be overcome, the human energy that can empower this change, this transition, lies to a very substantial degree in the women who form what was called the invisible section of agriculture. They will have to lead the revolution in the change in order to ensure that the technology that is evolved can be used by them, the productivity changes that is proposed in the R&D is actually realized, and the marketing and the consumption of millet-based products is something that can improve the economy of millet production. I think very rightly Dr. Ramesh Chand in the movie has brought out that there is an element of economics attached to millets, and that is a challenge we have to solve. How do we produce millets so that it can compete with wheat and rice? Ultimately, the farmer will grow that crop which gives him the best net income. How do we ensure what is the ecosystem we put in place that ensures that net for the farmer, or at least for farmers in those areas of the country where millets have some comparative advantages, it is advantageous for the farmer to grow millets to meet his own needs, to meet the needs of local society, and contribute to sustainability of the world. So I think these are challenges, and movies like this, other messages being generated, the Year of the Millets, the International Year of the Millets, all these are doing little bits to generate the momentum in order to promote R&D, to promote investments, to crowd in knowledge in support of these initiatives. And I'm sure that this movie that we have seen today is doing its little bit, and we in FOLU will certainly try and build on this as we go forward. Thank you very much for being here today and for your support. And particularly I wish to thank the people who are here and their friends. I visited the area Arakku maybe 40 years ago, and I see the movie, I find it's almost the same. So there are areas in the country where change is slow, and therefore the challenge to bring these technology improvements in such areas all that much greater. And I think we have to rise to these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving us this background and setting the context so succinctly. May I now invite the extraordinary women from Visakhapatnam and the Hubli districts who have traveled all the way to Delhi to be here with us on the stage for a brief interaction, along with the director of the film, Arjun Swaminathan. I also request our audience that if you'd like to ask a question to our special guests, please feel free to. There's a cordless mic here. We'll be happy to hand it over to you. Thank you so much.
Welcome, first of all. I'm interested to hear your all perspectives on what you think of millets now. What is your, having grown them for many years and dealing with the drudgery of processing them, what is your current view of millets?
ಸರ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಿರೋದೇನು ಅಂದರೆ ನೀವು ಎಷ್ಟು ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಮಿಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಸಿರಿಧಾನ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಬೆಳೆಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಶ್ರಮ ಇದೆ, ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಕಷ್ಟ ಇದೆ ಸಿರಿಧಾನ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಬೆಳೆಸೋದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಅವ್ರು ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ.
ನಮಸ್ತೆ, ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಬಿಬಿ ಜಾನ್ ಹಳೆಮನಿ ಅಂತ. ನಾನು ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಿಂದ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಬಿಬಿ ಫಾತಿಮಾ ಸ್ವಸಹಾಯ ಸಂಘದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು 12 ಜನ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಸರ್. ಮೊದಲ ಒಂದು 15 ವರ್ಷದ ಹಿಂದ್ಗಡೆ ಬೆಳೀತಿದ್ರು ಸಾಮೆ ನವಣೆ, ಅದು ಮಿಶ್ರ ತಳಿಯಾಗಿ ಬೆಳೀತಿದ್ರು ಮೇಡಮ್. ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಮರ್ತು ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೆ. ಈಗ ಕಮರ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಬೆಳೆಯಾಗಿ ಮೆಕ್ಕೆ ಮತ್ತು ಕಾಟನ್ ಬೆಳೆಯೋದ್ರಿಂದ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಿಲೆಟ್ಸನ್ನು ಮರ್ತು ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು. ನಾವು 2018ರಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಬಿಬಿ ಫಾತಿಮಾ ಸ್ವಸಹಾಯ ಸಂಘ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. 10 ಜನ ಸದಸ್ಯರು ಸೇರಿಕೊಂಡು ಒಂದು ಬಿಬಿ ಫಾತಿಮಾ ಸ್ವಸಹಾಯ ಸಂಘ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ ಸಿರಿಧಾನ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಮರಳಿ ತರಬೇಕನ್ನೋ ಉದ್ದೇಶದಿಂದ ಸಹಜ ಸಮೃದ್ಧ ಸಹಯೋಗದೊಂದಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಸೀಡ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಸೀಡ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ನಿಂದ ನಮ್ಮ ಉಳಿತಾಯದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಒಂದು 500 kg ಸಾಮೆಯನ್ನು ಖರೀದಿ ಮಾಡಿ ರೈತರಿಗೆ ವಿತರಣೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ ಮೇಡಮ್. ವಿತರಣೆ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅವ್ರಿಗೊಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಪುಷ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ, ರೈತರಿಗೆ ಬೆಳೀರಿ, ನೀವು ನಮ್ಮ ಸಿರಿಧಾನ್ಯಗಳ ಬಳಕೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಬೆಳೀರಿ ಅಂಥೇಳಂದು ಅವ್ರಿಗೊಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಸಾವಯವದ ಜ್ಞಾನವನ್ನು ತಿಳಿಸ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಿವಿ ನಾವು ಸ್ವಸಹಾಯ ಸಂಘದಿಂದ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಸಾವಯವ ಬೆಳೀಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಏನೇನು ಅನುಕೂಲತೆಗಳು ಬೇಕು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ತರಬೇತಿಗಳು ಬೇಕು, ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಸಹಜ ಸಮೃದ್ಧದ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಕೂಡಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ತರಬೇತಿಗಳನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ವಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸಿರಿಧಾನ್ಯಗಳನ್ನ ಬೆಳೀಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಸಿರಿಧಾನ್ಯಗಳನ್ನ ಬೆಳೆಯುವಾಗ ಬೆಳಿತೀವಿ, ಬೆಳೆಯೋ ಕಟಾವಿನ ಟೈಮ್ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಆಕತ್ತೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಬಳಕೆ ಮಾಡುವ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಕುಟ್ಟೋದು, ಬೀಸೋದು, ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಬಳಕೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಿದರು. ಅದು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಕ್ಲೀನಿಂಗು ಮೊದಲ ಇರೋದು ಕ್ಲೀನಿಂಗ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ, ಹಾರ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಲೇಬರ್ ಚಾರ್ಜು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಖರ್ಚು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂಥೇಳಂದು ರೈತರು ಬೆಳೆಯೋದನ್ನು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಿದರು. ಈಗ ನಾವು ಕ್ಲೀನಿಂಗಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ನಮ್ಮ SHGಯಿಂದ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಿಂಗ್ ಯೂನಿಟ್ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದೇವೆ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಕ್ಲೀನಿಂಗು ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಿಂಗ್, ರೈತರು ಬೆಳೆದದ್ದನ್ನು ಕ್ಲೀನಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ನಾವೇ ಖರೀದಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಸ್ವಂತ ಖುದ್ದಾಗಿ ನಾವೇ ಖರೀದಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಕ್ಕಿ, ರವೆ, ಹಿಟ್ಟು ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂಡೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಿಂಗು ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಮುಂದೆ
That was quite a bit to paraphrase. I'll just try my best to put it in proper context. So she is Bibi Fatima, and she comes from Bibi Jan Halimani. She comes from Bibi Fatima Self-Help Group. They have been growing millets for quite some time, but owing to the difficulty in the processing of millets that were harvested, for some time there was a gap in active produce of millets. So that was when this self-help group motivated them from 2018 to get into full-scale millet production. They encouraged in and around nearby farmers to get into millet production. She also adds on saying that there were no equipment to process these millets. So that was when through their self-help group they have been able to put up processing units to, in fact, right from the point of harvesting these millets till the time it was processed. It involves a lot of labor. So somehow this self-help group has really helped motivate the nearby farmers around the self-help group to encourage millet farming. And they also have put up a processing facility. In 2020, they set up this processing unit. And ಇವಗೆಷ್ಟು ನೀವು process ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ?
ನಾವು ಕ್ಲೀನಿಂಗು ಪ್ರತಿದಿನವೂ ಒಂದು 25 ಕ್ವಿಂಟಲ್ ಕ್ಲೀನಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಅದೇ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರ ನಡೆಸುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಿಂಗ್ ಯೂನಿಟ್, ಕ್ಲೀನಿಂಗು ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಿಂಗು.
So they process about 25 quintals of millets per day, and it is totally handled and managed by women through the self-help group.
ಆಮೇಲೆ ರೈತರು ಬೆಳೆದಾಗ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮಿಲೆಟ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಅಂತ ಬೆಂಬಲ ಬೆಲೆ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಬೆಂಬಲ ಬೆಲೆಯನ್ನು ನಿಗದಿ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಇವರು ದಲ್ಲಾಳಿಗಳು ಕೈಗೆ ಬಂದ ಥರ ಅವರು ರೇಟನ್ನು ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ SHG ಸಣ್ಣದಾಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಬಂಡವಾಳದ ಕೊರತೆ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ನಾವು ದೇವಧಾನ್ಯ ಫಾರ್ಮರ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ ಕಂಪ್ನಿ ಅಂತ ಕಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ. 2022ರಲ್ಲಿ ದೇವಧಾನ್ಯ ಫಾರ್ಮರ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ ಕಂಪ್ನಿ ಕಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಕಂಪ್ನಿಯಿಂದ ಖರೀದಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಖರೀದಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಕ್ಲೀನಿಂಗು ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಆಮೇಲೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಡೆ ಈಗ ನಮ್ಮ ಕುಂದಗೋಳ ತಾಲೂಕು 5 ಜಿಲ್ಲೆಗಳಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಸೀಡನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಆಲ್ ವೆರೈಟಿ ಸೀಡ್ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಡೆ ಮಿಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ, ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ವೆರೈಟಿ ಮಿಲೆಟ್ಸು. ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ವಿತರಣೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದೀವಿ 1 to 2 ಅಂದರೆ ದುಡ್ಡು ಕೊಟ್ಟರೆ ಇದಾಗಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಂದು 3 ತಿಂಗಳಿಗೆ ಸೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಬೀಜಗಳನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಹಾರ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಅವರು 1 to 2 1 kgಗೆ 1 kg ಹಾಕಿ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕಂತ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಹೀಗಾಗಿ ಈಗ ಒಂದು 5 ಜಿಲ್ಲೆಗಳಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಬೀಜಗಳನ್ನು ವಿತರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ.
So she says that since 2022, through the self-help group, they have been actively involved in seed distribution. So they have, before the start of every sowing season, they are able to, in case they receive 1 portion of millets, they give back 2 portions. So 1 to 2 is what is the term that she uses. So they give back 2 portions that can be that can be sowed by the women. And ಹೇಗೆ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಉತ್ತೇಜನ ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತ?
ನಾವು ಮುಂಗಾರು ಹಂಗಾಮು ಮತ್ತು ಹಿಂಗಾರು ಹಂಗಾಮಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಬೀಜ ಮೇಳಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಸುತ್ತಲೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಲಸ್ಟರ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಬೀಜಗಳ ಮೇಳಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರಿಂದ ಬೀಜ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡೋರನ್ನ ಕರೆಸಿ ಬೀಜಗಳ ಪ್ರದರ್ಶನಗಳನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಮೇಡಮ್. ದೇಸಿ ವೆರೈಟಿ ಬೀಜಗಳ ಪ್ರದರ್ಶನಗಳನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಬೀಜಗಳ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಮಾಡಿದಂಥವ್ರಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಬಹುಮಾನ ಅಂತ ವಿತರಣೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದೀವಿ.
So she also adds that for millets there is no minimum support price MSP that was there. That was a major disincentive to actually for these women farmers to take up active growing of millets. So in order to counter that, that was when they started distributing seeds through their self-help group. And how do they promote millet and seed preservation? So they conduct millet melas, and also seed banks. Through their seed banks, they're able to, and they conduct seed festival. So through that, they're able to generate about 5 millet varieties, 9 varieties, and desi varieties. So native varieties of millets are also being encouraged to be grown so that the diversity of millet production can be continued.
If they wanted to double millet production, is it that there is no demand for it, or is it because the price is less they cannot do it? Like, what is the problem? Is it the price, or is it the demand?
ఇది పంటలు పండిస్తున్నది, దాన్ని అధిక ఉత్పత్తి చేస్తే దానికి సరైన మార్కెట్ ఉందా, దానివల్లనే పండించగలుగుతామా లేకపోతే కూడా పండించగలుగుతామా?
అందరికీ నమస్కారం అండి. నా పేరు వరహాలమ్మ. మాది మా మన్యం పార్వతీపురం, మా మండలం చీతంపేట మండలం, మరి మారుమూర గ్రామాలు, మాది ఆదివాసుల గ్రామాలండి. మేము పండించే పంటలు సిరిధాన్యాలు, కొర్రలు, గంటెలు, సామలు, ఊదలు, కందులు, మినుములు అనేకం మా పోడ్లో వేసి మేము పండించుకుంటామండి. మేము పండించే పంటలు అప్పుడు మా తాతలు ముత్తాతలు సేంద్రియ ఎరువులు వేసి గెత్తం వేసి పంటలు పండించేవారు. అలాంటిది ఈ రోజుల్లో మనము పురుగు మందులు వేసి ఎక్కువ పండిస్తున్నాం. దానివల్ల మనము చాలా ఆరోగ్యానికి హానికరం అవుతున్నాం. ఎందుకంటే మనము ఆ పండించే పంట సేంద్రియ ఎరువులు ఏంటంటే ఆవు గెత్తము, అలాగే సేంద్రియ ఎరువులతో మనం పండించే పంట మనం తింటే మంచి ఆరోగ్యంగా ఉంటుందండి. దానివల్ల మన కుటుంబము, మన పిల్లలు అందరము సంతోషంగా హాయిగా ఉండగలము. ఎందుకంటే అప్పుడు మా ముత్తాతలు పండించే పంటలు అప్పుడు తినేదానికంటే అప్పుడు వాళ్ళు 100-130 వందల వరకు బతికేవాళ్ళు. అలాంటిది ఇప్పుడు మనం ఈ రోజుల్లోన 30-40 రోజుల్లోన మనకి గుండెపోటు, క్యాన్సర్, అలాగే పచ్చవాత ఇలాంటి అనేకమైన మనకు జబ్బులు వస్తున్నాయి. కనుక మనము సేంద్రియ ఎరువులతో పండించే పంట మంచి ఆరోగ్యంగా ఉంటుందని మా గ్రామంలో పండించిన పంటలు మీకు చెప్పడం, మాకు చిన్న యంత్రాలు ఇస్తే బాగుంటుందని మేము కొర్రలు గంటిలు అంబలి చేసుకుని తినేవాళ్ళము. దంచుకుంటూ ఎంతో పనిచేసి వచ్చి కష్టపడి ఆ రాగులు అంబలి చేసుకునే వాళ్ళము. కొర్ర బియ్యము దంచుకుంటూ ఓదలో సామలో దంచి ఎంతో ఇబ్బందులు పడుతుండి అడవిలో కష్టపడి మా ఆదివాసులు మా కష్టం ఇతర మన సంస్థ మన కేవీకి అలాగే మన ఈ ఆర్ట్స్ మన వాసు వారికి వచ్చి మేము చెప్తే వాళ్ళు వచ్చి మాకు సరే మీ పంటలు పండించి గిట్టుబాటు ధరకు మీకు వచ్చినట్లు మీరు ఆరోగ్యంగా ఉంటారని మాకు చెప్పడం జరిగిందండి. అలాగే మా గ్రామానికి ఇప్పుడు ప్రతి వాళ్ళు మాకు సేంద్రియ ఎరువులతో మంచి క్వాలిటీతో పండించిన పంటలు మాకు ఇస్తారని, మనకు యంత్రాలు ఇస్తారని మన రాష్ట్రం ఢిల్లీ వచ్చి మేము కోరుకునేది ఏంటంటే మన మోడీ సార్కి చెప్పి మేము మా గ్రామ అభివృద్ధి కోసము యంత్రాలు ఇస్తారని మేము మీ అందరికీ కోరి నా హృదయపూర్వక నమస్కారాలండి. మా ఆదివాసులకి మంచి ఫుడ్ ఇస్తారని మీరు మరి కోరి మీ అవకాశం ఇచ్చిన అందరికీ నా ధన్యవాదాలు.
Her name is Varahalama. She is from Kusmi village, Sitampeta mandal of Parvatipuram Maniam district, tribal area. Since her childhood, there was a millets. She is owning 15 acres. She is carrying the millet cultivation in 3 acres. Not only as a single, there are, along with other millets, there are pulses also. So we never bother about the market, but we have to consume. So my elder people, they used to grow and then make the valuation and then for consumption. So that is the way we are continuing it. But now our daughters and sister-in-laws, they are having a difficulty for processing of the millets. So she is demanding to the government to provide a certain smaller equipment who can process it and go for for a household level consumption. But there is a MSP price declared by the state government, but they are not much, legalized that MSP price. That is there, but the procurement is not happening where expected by the state government. That Indian government is also announced this is a millet year, so Modi ji encouraging us. But we being cultivating as a cultivator, we are continuing our thing. But if there is a market demand, the price and may increase the more area of millet cultivation in the area. That uplands generally they are using for cultivation of millets, but now they reduced because of the market demand. There are other crops also forcefully encouraging by the agriculture department to go with the commercial crops. So the commercial crops are replacing millets. So that is the one. But in her own story, that the millet cultivation is still continuing. That is the champion. We can encourage, that is whatever the land is being allocated for the millets is still continuing it. Though it is having 15 acres, cashew plantation and some other crops also is growing it in where the rice, where the irrigation facility rice is growing. But in the other uplands, apart from the millet, there are other pulses also is happening. So.
Thank you so much. We have 2 more questions, and if we can just answer them very briefly. Thank you so much. Mamta and then.
First of all, I want to convey my deepest regards to them, and I think it's such a privilege to be in the same room with you, because you have the solution to the biggest problem that we are facing at a global level. So thank you very much for giving us the space, for being here and sharing your story. My question to them is, they are doing amazing work, and the movie's title was Invisible Women. If there is one thing that they can have and from whom, that would make them from an invisible to unstoppable?
ఇప్పుడు వరకు ఇప్పుడు చిరుధాన్యాలు పండించుకోవడం అనే దానికి ఒక పద్ధతిలో నడుస్తూ ఉంది. కానీ ఏ అంశం ఏ విషయం మనకు ఉంటే సో ఇంకా మన ప్రయాణం ఇంకా గట్టిగా చేయొచ్చు చిరుధాన్యాల పెంపకంలో తినటంలో.
ముందైతే చేటతో చెరిగి రాళ్ళు తీసేవాళ్ళం. కర్ర మిషన్లో తిరిగేళ్ళు అలా చేసి చెరిగి పొట్టు పక్కన పడేసి అది ఒక 5 కేజీలు అయితే ఒక రోజు పట్టుద్ది అలా చేసి మనం బియ్యం తయారు చేసుకోవడానికి. అలాగే ఆ ప్రాసెస్ ఇప్పుడు కొంచెం పర్లేదు. సార్ వాళ్ళు మాకు ఒక మిల్లెట్స్ మిక్స్ కూడా ఇచ్చారు. ఉంది మా దగ్గర మిల్లెట్స్ మిక్స్ ఉండడం వల్ల ఒక 10 నిమిషాల్లో రెడీ చేసుకొని వంట చేసి మా పిల్లల్ని ఫుడ్ పెట్టి బడికి పంపించే పని అవుతుంది. అదే ముందు పద్ధతిలో అయితే ఒకరోజు 5 కేజీలు మన బియ్యం తయారు చేసుకోవాలంటే ఒకరోజు పట్టుద్ది. అదే 10 కేజీలు 20 కేజీలు అయితే మినిమం 2-3 రోజులు పట్టుద్ది. కానీ ఇప్పుడు అలా లేదు. అలాగే మా దగ్గర ఉన్న లాంటి మిల్లెట్స్ మిక్సీలు మన విలేజ్ల్లో అందరికి కావాలి అంటున్నారు. మా దగ్గర ఉంది కాబట్టి చూసి మన విలేజ్ల్లో అందరికీ కూడా ఆ మిక్సీలు అందేలా చూస్తారని నా మనవి.
So actually, she's Amala. She's from Arku region, SR district, Allur Chitramala district. She said, "What is the triggering point?" You asked, but she said, "No need of the bigger thing for millet." But she's having one mixie. Millet mixie is making in 10 minutes also whatever the grain is required for that particular either lunch or dinner. So that is more than enough for us. So earlier we used to take if we required 5 kg of rice, millet rice, so the whole day we have to pound it and make it and then entire, so we have to utilize our time like that. But now in 10 minutes, whatever the lunch or in the morning or evening, so anything for whatever the quantity of rice is required, we are using the mixie. That kind of facilities if is available, that's more than enough for our, in tribal area where we are growing, the millet can go for our household level consumption. But she said like the most of the millets going to the urban area for the marketing, because certain only 10 to 15% only we are utilizing for our household. The remaining portion going to the urban area for other members. So there is a demand is increasing, but simultaneously, so we have to make it easy. How best we can make it for ready to cook, for a household level. And then there are several other recipes also can be, make it into for children. They like it more. So those are the things, to keep ourselves, continue our journey with the millets.
Okay. This is a health-related question. I wanted to know, for themselves and their families, as the consumption of millet increased, did they see an improvement in their health status? Thank you.
ಅವ್ರು ಕೇಳ್ತಿರೋದು, ನೀವೆಲ್ಲ ಸಿರಿಧಾನ್ಯ ಸ್ವಂತ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ, ನೀವು ದಿನನಿತ್ಯ ಬಳಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ. ಸೊ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕುಟುಂಬದ ಆರೋಗ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಬದಲಾವಣೆಯನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ? ಹೆಲ್ತ್ ವೈಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಆರೋಗ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವೇನಾದರೂ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ? ಹೇಗೆ ಅದು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಆರೋಗ್ಯದ ಮೇಲೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಪರಿಣಾಮ ಬೀರ್ತಿದೆ ನೀವು ಸಿರಿಧಾನ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಬೆಳೆಸ್ತಾ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ?
ನಮ್ಮ ಹಳ್ಳಿಯ ಮಟ್ಟದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಸಿರಿಧಾನ್ಯಗಳನ್ನ ಮೊದಲು ಬಳಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ವಿ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಸಾಮೆ ಅನ್ನ, ನವಣೆ ಅನ್ನ, ಸಾಮೆ ರೊಟ್ಟಿಯನ್ನು ಊಟ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ರು. ಈಗ ನಾವು ಮಾಡರ್ನ್ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸ್ಟೇಜಿಗೆ ಬಂದು ನಾವು ಎಲ್ಲ ಬೇಕರಿ ತಿನಿಸುಗಳನ್ನ ತಿನ್ನಿಸ್ತಿದ್ವಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆಲ್ಲ. ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ಅದು ಫಾಸ್ಟ್ ಫುಡ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮ್ಯಾಗಿ ಇಂಥವೆಲ್ಲ, ಇಡ್ಲಿ ದೋಸೆ ಇಂಥವೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ವಿ. ಈಗ ಸಿರಿಧಾನ್ಯಗಳನ್ನ ಬೆಳೆದು ಆಮೇಲೆ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ನಾವು ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯುಡೇಷನ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯುಡೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ವಿ. ರಾಗಿ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಮಾಲ್ಟ್ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ವಿ, ರಾಗಿ ದೋಸೆ ಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ವಿ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮಲ್ಟಿಗ್ರೇನ್ ಆಟ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ವಿ. ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ಮಲ್ಟಿಗ್ರೇನ್ ಆಟದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು 25 ವೆರೈಟಿ ಪಲ್ಸಸ್ಸು, ಆಮೇಲೆ 9 ವೆರೈಟಿ ಮಿಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಅವನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ತೊಳೆದು ಹಾಕಿ ಪೌಡ್ರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ವಿ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಡ್ರೈ ಫ್ರೂಟ್ಸ್ ಹಾಕಿ ಪೌಡ್ರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ವಿ. ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ಎದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಗ್ಲಾಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟರೆ ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ 6 ತಿಂಗಳ ಮಗುವಿನಿಂದ ವೃದ್ಧರು ಅದನ್ನು ಸೇವನೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಮೇಡಮ್. ಆಮೇಲೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಹಳ್ಳಿ ಜನರು ಮೊದಲೇ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಂಗ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಮಿಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಬೆಳೆಯೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಹೊಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ 8 ಅವರು 10 ಅವರು ಕೆಲಸಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದೇವೆ ಮೇಡಮ್. ನಮ್ಮ ಆರೋಗ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿನೂ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಆಗಿದೆ. ನಾವು ರಾಗಿ ರೊಟ್ಟಿಯನ್ನು ಊಟ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಈ ರೊಟ್ಟಿಯನ್ನು ಅನಾಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಸಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಸಾವಿ ರೊಟ್ಟಿಯನ್ನು ಈಗ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಿಗೆ ತರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಸಾವಿ ರೊಟ್ಟಿಯನ್ನು ತಿಂತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಂಗ್, ನಮ್ಮ ಹಳ್ಳಿ ಜನ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಿಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಊಟ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಂಗ್ ಅದಾರೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಆರೋಗ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿನೂ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸುಧಾರಣೆ ಆಗಿದೆ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಡಯಾಬಿಟಿಸು, BP, ಶುಗರು, ಥೈರಾಯ್ಡು ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ಗೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಮೇಡಮ್.
So she says that there was a phase when even they were almost succumbing to the modern day food systems. It was when they started growing more of millets, when they started processing millets within their households and using more of millets in their diet. Like she mentions that they have made this product, once they started including value-added products to their array of products that they started processing, after processing, which includes a malt mix. ಎಷ್ಟು ಧಾನ್ಯಗಳಂದ್ರಿ ನೀವು? 25 varieties of pulses and 9 variety of millets go into this malt, and it's you just have to cook it and add it with milk and give it to the children. And she says that even from the youngest infant to the oldest person can consume this malt, and they are able to manage about 8 to 10 hours of physical labor in the fields, and that has enabled them, this particular change in their diet system has enabled them to keep diabetes and thyroid issues and blood pressure issues away from at least their households, is what she's telling. And it's been having a positive impact on their lifestyle and on their health, is what she would like to add.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts so candidly with us. May I request for a huge round of applause for them before they leave the stage. Thank you. Moving on to the next segment of our program, may I now invite on stage the extraordinary women who have been an inspiration to many in their own rights. I invite on stage Ms. Mamta Borgoyary, co-director of She Changes Climate, Ms. Shubhada Deshmukh, co-founder Amhi, Amchya, Arogyasathi, and Dr. Shweta Khandelwal, senior advisor, nutrition, JHPIEGO, India Country Office. To moderate the session and introduce our panelists further, I invite Dr. Ruchika Singh, Executive Program Director for WRI India. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Pallavi, for that introduction. But I have to admit, after hearing the last session, I think, they are really the change makers and champions. And, I'm sure all the panelists here would agree with that. Congratulations also to FOLU for the film screening. I think a lot of thought went to it, and how really differentiating that role of women in production systems is critical, but also in market distribution. And it is invisible. We are quite aware of it, and recognizing them as farmers, but also as entrepreneurs, and really recognizing different roles that women are playing. But also, I mean, if we look from an intersectional lens, because I think what we want to talk a little bit more about also is looking at role of gender, women in nutritional security, what kind of programs are sort of being designed, what are we learning from data. So zooming out a bit from the discussions we've had till now, but in that context, as Mr. Vijay Kumar was saying, and I think we heard from colleagues in the Norwegian Embassy as well, climate change is sort of knocking on our doors. We know it's a everyone and everyday problem. How do we think about what kind of strategies will work for that? How do we think about more resilient food systems, food and nutritional security, and within that role of women becomes critical to look at. So I'm quite sort of honored to introduce, we have a very sort of, engaging panel members here. We have Shubhada ji, who's part of Amhi, Amchya, Arogyasathi. She's a co-founder. We work with Amhi, Amchya, Arogyasathi quite a lot. And really, it's a learning experience. And I would like to start with her first, just in terms of, from your experience, Shubhada ji, and what you've been seeing in Maharashtra and, you know, in general in terms of the role that women are playing in nutritional security, but what kind of innovations, what are the strategies that are really working which can help in improving, the diversifying the plate, if I can say that. And how do we sort of move forward with some of those innovations? Nutri Gardens, we hear, is one of the interventions that has been, working. So, but a bit more on that from you. Hindi or English, whatever you're comfortable is fine.
बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है सबके साथ में यहाँ, और ख़ास करके जो दीदी लोग आए हैं और जिनकी फिल्म बहुत अच्छी बढ़िया सी, और ये जो है कि उनको देखते हुए जब मैंने शुरू किया था वो SHG की सभी यादें ताज़ी हो गई। अभी भी कुछ चल रहे हैं और हम लोग भी महुआ के साथ में किस तरह से कर सकते हैं, महुआ एंड मिलेट मिक्सिंग इट ऑल्सो, तो इस तरह से भी कुछ कर रहे हैं। तो ये जो है कि हम न्यूट्रिशन के बारे में बहुत सारी महिलाएं जो करती हैं खुद, उनको ये पता नहीं कि इसमें है क्या, इसमें क्या भंडार छुपा हुआ है, वो उनको पता नहीं होता, पर वो करते तो आ रही है सदियों से, वो सीखी है अपनी माँओं से, सासू माँ से वगैरह, और वो सब करते हुए अलग अलग कुछ ये भी धीरे धीरे करने लगे। जैसे मैं ये बताना चाहूँगी कि महुआ के बारे में जब हमने शुरुआत की, क्योंकि हमारा जो एरिया है वो फॉरेस्ट ज़्यादा है इसमें, तो वो हमारा बहुत अच्छा एक सोर्स भी है, और महुआ इज़ आल्सो ए न्यूट्रिशन फुल। तो इसके अलग अलग चीज़ें जब करने लगे तो एक तो उनका आनंद उसमें इस तरह से बढ़ने लगा कि महुआ का जब केक सिखाया गया उनको, महुआ एंड मिलेट्स मंड्या, तो उसमें से उन्होंने केक बनाना, और महिला ग्रुप की जो महिला है उनके बर्थडे सेलिब्रेशन किया। वो उनके लिए बहुत ये था कि किसी महिला का कभी बर्थडे गांव में नहीं किया होगा, तो वो बहुत एक अच्छा ये है कि हम ये करते हैं। इसमें एक है कि हाँ, हमारे बच्चों को मिले, हमें मिले, या फैमिली को कुछ जो न्यूट्रिशन का ये मिले सोर्स, इसलिए सिर्फ नहीं, वो उनके अपने आनंद के लिए भी करते हैं। और वो सब करते हुए कि कैसे, क्योंकि वो जिम्मेवारी है, खाने की जो चीज़ें हैं वो गैदरिंग एंड ऑल्सो मेकिंग इट, ये सब उनकी एक प्राइम जिम्मेवारी है, वो करते आई है। पर मुझे लगता है कि जैसे यहाँ फिल्म में भी वो एक बात छेड़ी गई है कि वो सिर्फ महिलाओं की जिम्मेवारी है करके, देवी करके उनका पूजन नहीं होना चाहिए, ये हमें आगे लेके जाना है थ्रू SHG एंड ऑल्सो एज ए ग्राम सभा, विलेज पंचायत। तो उसमें उसके जरिए हमें पुरुषों को सिर्फ ये नहीं कि हाँ ये बहुत अच्छे कर रही है, तो ये भी उनको जानना जरूरी है कि वो खुद कैसे सीखे, वो भी करे। और एक हमारे गांव में वो अनुभव हुआ कि जब महिलाओं को समय नहीं था, ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम लोगों ने बताया, ICDS वर्कर ने बताया, इसलिए वहाँ रखा गया, पर कोई महिला नहीं थी। लेकिन उस गांव के 10 पुरुष सामने आए, वो बोले कि हम करेंगे, और उन्होंने फिर महिलाओं को भी सिखाया। तो इस तरह से हो सकता है, बदल सकते हैं लोग जो जिम्मेवारी अभी तक कुछ नहीं किया हो। और ख़ास करके जैसे मेरा अनुभव है कि आदिवासी जो लोग हैं उनमें, या आदिवासी पुरुषों में ये ताकत बहुत अच्छी है बाकी लोगों से। तो ये भी एक अच्छा ये है कि जो हमें पहचानना चाहिए। अब ये उनके पास है, वो लोग ये सब कर रही है, महुआ है, तेंदू है, बहुत सारी चीज़ें हमारे यहाँ हैं, लेकिन उसको हम आइडेंटिफाई कर कैसे करें, और वो भी हो जाता है। मिलेट्स का भी जैसे एक दीदी ने बोला कि ये हो जाता है, कर ले, लेकिन उसका अगर दाम नहीं मिल रहा तो हम क्या करेंगे उसका, तो वो भी बहुत ज़रूरी है। तो हमारे यहाँ हमारा महुआ है, हमारा तेंदू का फल है कि जिसमें बहुत अच्छी कुछ जो चीज़ें हैं कि जो न्यूट्रिशन के लिए, और ख़ास करके जो उनके ब्रेन डेवलपमेंट के लिए अच्छी है, तेंदू फ्रूट जो होता है, लेकिन वो सब ICDS के फूड में नहीं आता है। तो ये हम कैसे करें, ये हम क्यों नहीं पहचान रहे, ये हम क्यों नहीं ला रहे कि ये सब हमारे प्रोग्राम में आए, हम इसका उपयोग क्यों नहीं कर सकते हैं। बाकी जो चीज़ें हैं बाहर से आती है, पैकेज फूड आ रहा है, तो हम ICDS के इसमें हमने वो ये करना भी चाहते हैं, हम वो प्रयास कर रहे हैं ICDS से मिलकर कि अगर ये चीज़ें हम उनके फूड में ला पाए तो वहीं के चीज़ों को दाम भी मिलेगा और वो उसको एक तरह का मतलब एक इज्जत मिलेगी कि ये किया जाता है, ये यहाँ खाया जाता है। तो इस तरह से इसको बढ़ावा देने की बहुत ज़रूरी है और हमारी जो पॉलिसीज़ है उस पॉलिसीज़ में ये किस तरह से आए, ये मुझे लगता है कि बहुत ज़रूरी है। और जैसे है कि किचन गार्डन का भी एक सोचा गया है, और जब हमने SHG के साथ में काम शुरू किया था तो एक महिला ने बोला कि हम जब अलग अलग अनुभव सबके ले रहे थे कि ये जो किचन गार्डन का इसके जरिए, क्योंकि महिलाओं के नाम पे खेती नहीं होती है, वो हमने सुना ही, अभी तो बहुत सारे और क्या है, खास करके फॉरेस्ट राइट्स के अंतर्गत जब IFR का यह आ गया है तो जॉइंट एंटाइटलमेंट कानून में लिखा हुआ है, लेकिन वो महिला को पता नहीं कि उसके नाम से मिला है। और उसके बावजूद भी पूरी गवर्नमेंट मशीनरी जो हमारी है वो भी उसके लिए बहुत तरीके से तैयार नहीं है। हमारी एक महिला को IFR मिलने के बावजूद, उसका नाम होने के बावजूद, उसके जो एंटाइटलमेंट मिलवाना थे वहाँ उसको पानी के लिए तालाब चाहिए, तो उसके नाम से देने के लिए जो डिपार्टमेंट है वो तैयार नहीं, क्योंकि उसका पति जिंदा है। तो इसका मतलब उसको जब कानून बोल रहा है तब भी हमें नहीं मिलता है। तो इसके लिए लड़ाई लड़नी पड़ती है महिलाओं को। तब मैं ये हरदम बोलती आई हूँ कि आदिवासी पुरुषों को या आदिवासी समाज को सिर्फ प्रशासन के साथ लड़ना पड़ता है, कि लेकिन आदिवासी महिला को समाज और प्रशासन दोनों से लड़ना पड़ता है। तो ये दोनों करके अपनी जो बच्चे हैं या आने वाली पीढ़ी है उन सबको कैसे ठीक बनाए, तंदुरुस्त बनाए, ये जो जिम्मेवारी है वो जिम्मेवारी दोनों की ज़रूर है, लेकिन उसको ये करते हुए उसका जो अपना हिस्सा है, अधिकार है, वो भी मिलने की जो बात फिल्म में भी ली गई है कि हमारे नाम से ज़मीन कैसे आएगी। एक हमारी वो जो बात है, तो मैं जैसे अम्ही आमच्या आरोग्यासाठी वी फॉर अवर हेल्थ के साथ में काम कर रही हूँ, उसके साथ ही हमारा जो एक महिलाओं का नेटवर्क है महिला किसान अधिकार मंच, उससे भी जुड़ी हूँ। और हमारा एक मानना है कि महिला को किसान करके दर्जा कैसे मिले, उसको किस तरह से किसान समझा जाए, ये भी हम बात करते हैं। और अगर हम क्योंकि जब कोई जो खेती की ज़मीन हमारी नहीं है या मिल भी जाए तो भी उसमें नाम नहीं आता है, लेकिन घर के आसपास की जो जगह है वो तो हमारी है। और ये जो किचन गार्डन्स है वो सदियों से महिलाएं करती आई, लेकिन जब पानी है उसी समय होता है। तो हमने जो प्रयास किया वो ये कि इसको हम थोड़ा और कैसे बढ़ाएं, पानी की व्यवस्था सब मिलके, गांव मिलके या आसपास के कुछ जो घर है वो मिलके किस ढंग से किए जाएंगी। और वो करके जो हम सिर्फ 3 या 4 महीने के लिए कर रहे हैं उसे हम करीबन मतलब जून से शुरू हो जाता है, तो जनवरी या कुछ जगह तो मार्च अप्रैल तक भी वो बढ़ाया गया है। तो इस तरीके से सब्जी, कुछ और अनाज और 4 लेयर्स ये हो सकता है कि एट द बॉटम देन बुश जैसे कुछ जो सब्जी या और भी कुछ चीज़ें उगाई जाती हैं, कुछ दवाइयाँ उसमें से ली जाती है। क्रिपल्स हो सकते हैं जिसमें सब्जी भी है, फल भी है, और बड़े पेड़ जैसे पपीता है, अमरूद गुहावा है और बहुत सारे, सीताफल बहुत आसानी से आ सकते हैं, तो इसलिए सीताफल जैसी चीज़ें हैं। तो इन सब को मिलके इस तरीके से 4 लेयर जो ये है, हल्दी वगैरह जैसे चीज़ें भी महिलाएं कर लेती है, आप लोगों को सबको तो पता है जो लोग कर रहे हैं। तो ये सब करके हम अपना एक जो सॉवर्जिनिटी की बात आई, स्वायत्तता, तो ये स्वायत्तता क्या होती है कि हमारे हाथ में हमारे बीज रहे, हमारे हाथ में, और जिसके ऊपर कोई मतलब जो दवाइयाँ नहीं है, जिसे हम शुद्ध रूप से खा सकते हैं। तो इस तरीके से जो, और इसका हमने ये भी किया कि कुछ इलाके में सिर्फ गोलियाँ, ये आयरन बढ़ने के लिए आयरन की गोलियाँ दी गई, और दूसरे इलाके में ये किचन गार्डन और दवाइयाँ से, या कुछ एरिया में सिर्फ किचन गार्डन। तो इन सब इसमें ये पता चला कि जहाँ किचन गार्डन है वहीं हम लोग अच्छी तरह से उनका जब HB नापा गया तो HB ठीक ढंग से बढ़ा है।
Thank you, Shubhada ji. I think a very complex sort of relationship, one that women and men have, and the potential of recognition of Forest Rights Act, उसके अंतर्गत जो FRA में अगर जब rights मिल भी जाते हैं तो किस तरीके से programs बने जिससे कि महिलाओं को भी benefit मिले, कैसे ICDS और बाकियों से link कर सकते हैं। मेरे काफ़ी follow-up सवाल हैं पर मैं उस पर बाद में आऊँगी। I'd like to move now to Mamta, who is the co-director for She Change, and you worked with more than 27 years very deeply with women and marginalized groups, focusing on health, education, etc. I mean, if you could reflect a bit more on, we've seen that there is obviously with climate change, there is the realities is affecting on the ground very differently, for women, for Adivasis, but also what's really the role that you are seeing with different government programs that are being designed on the ground? I mean, are they really looking at, can they help in attaining nutritional security the way we see? Or, I mean, are they really targeting, for instance, innovation that we need? We saw in the movie specifically a lot of drudgery or time that's needed for women to be involved in some of these activities. So, what have you been seeing, and what could be the innovations that we could potentially think about?
First of all, I would say that it is quite obvious, and then scientific data is already existing, which says that millet could be one of the solution to climate resilient agriculture. And I'm just back from COP28, and I have to say that there is a huge amount of pressure, if I can say so, anxiety in terms of looking for solutions, whereas and particularly in agriculture and livestock sector, which is one of the biggest contributor to the emissions. And here we have stories which have solutions, which already provide solutions. So one thing that is important here is, when you talk about it, is I think scale. Scale is very important if you look at it from the climate resilient point of view. And right now we have very small examples of how pilots are being successful, and within that we are hearing about the drudgery, the invisible part of it, and all these stories about lack of agencies that women require to really take it at scale. In terms of government program, I'm aware that Orissa government has really started, they have this mission, millet mission, and they're working with women's self-help group, and what an amazing, powerful program it is. And if you look at it, starting from, and there's a lesson there, and it was very clear in the films and the discussion that we had, that if you want to look at success of millet as not just climate resilient, but it seems to be also a solution for poverty as well as health. So in that case, it is important to look at the entire value chain. We have to look from production to consumption, and we have to look at the economics of it. If you don't look at the economics of it, if you don't focus on it, it remains a pilot scale. And then I think what is important, and as you will say, it is extremely heartening to see the focus that Government of India has given in terms of promoting millets. But it is also important now that we look at, from the national perspective, how can you, what steps need to be taken across the entire value chain, from production to consumption. Right now, in terms of consumption, millet, particularly in urban areas, it still has a very niche market. It is more from a very conscious, super conscious health freaks, if I may say so. I'm sorry to use the word, but that's who are consuming. Whereas our tradition tells us, the strength that lies in these traditional crops, and why have we lost it? I think there is a huge amount of sensitization that needs to come on. And it should become, there should be a government focus on changing the diet plan We heard about the midday meals. I think there can be no other. And we heard about from our guests as how it is changing their health parameters. So I think it should become a part of the midday program. It is being done in few states, but not many. In Assam, I had the privilege of working with women farmers, and there were about currently more than 500 plus women farmers who are transforming the entire landscape of what women farmers are. So they are no more invisible there. They are looking at land holding, they're looking at loans. And it is this agency only which can really support in scaling up. From COP28, there is one message that which has stuck to me throughout, and it is this whole thing about the urgency of it. And I don't think we have the time. And therefore, what I particularly feel that the government has to go on a mission mode to make traditional crops and traditional food systems as an important health component of the health package. And just last one point on women empowerment, I can't stop myself from saying this. It is but obvious, and isn't it quite funny that all our global crisis, the burden always is on the women to solve. They are the solution providers always, whether it is forest conservation, whether it is water shortage, whether it is malnutrition of babies, and now we have the food system. I don't think there needs to be any discussion on why women should be at the forefront across level in deciding what has to be done.
Thanks, Mamta. I think quite well said. When we are thinking about, we have to think about the entire food system. How do we think about the production, market, distribution, consumption? And it has to be affordable and accessible. I mean, if we are talking about, if millets is fashionable, that's not necessarily going to help us mainstream it. And how do we think about program scale within that is going to be very, very critical, which brings me to importance of data. When we talk about any of this, how do we plan for programs? What's really the current state of the art or data saying on this? And I'd like to, move the conversation to Shweta, who's from JHPIEGO, senior nutrition advisor at JHPIEGO. And Shweta, I think just in terms of, if you could reflect a bit on, what kind of data that you are seeing and in terms of, nutritional security, or if we're looking in context of gender or inclusion in general, what data is available, also role of millets itself when we think about strengthening nutritional security. And most importantly, do you see millets as a complete answer? Because the movie talks about crop diversification. We do need to think, monocropping of any kinds could be different. So how do we diversify the plates? What's the data sort of saying in that? And how do we sort of learn from some of these aspects, while what Mamta and Shubhada ji was saying, because eventually programs are designed, could be potentially designed like that,
Yeah, thank you so much for asking this question. And I think I don't want to bore the audience by giving you several reports, because everybody can Google and find out data. But I think what is more important is certain figures which tell the story, the numbers which tell the story. So for example, in 2021 alone, there were 828 million people who went hungry to bed. And of those, 150 million more women went hungry to bed. So that itself is telling you that there is a huge discrepancy in terms of gender disparity that we are talking about, even when it comes to food. We've always seen papers, there is a lot of qualitative, anthropological data, telling you that there is a difference in how households are, it's increasingly changing because of the government policies, that too on record. There are positives also, but we must still see the national data, if you see, whether it is from NFHS, National Family Health Survey, whether it is from CNNS, that is the Comprehensive National Nutrition Survey of adolescents, of children and adolescents. All these data are still bent heavily towards boy or male, in favor of male side. You still have a lot of women or even younger girls having a lot of nutritional issues. So even if I say as adolescents, 11%, that means out of 100, 89 do not have adequate meals. That number should sink in. So because that's something which talks to us, right? Only 11% have diet diversity. And in that very vein, I want to come to the point which you were asking about millets being one all. I absolutely don't want to dampen the spirit. It is a great solution. But please remember, again, these are piecemeal solution packaging. Do not do that. Do not discount millets also by asking or by thinking that, is that the panacea? Is that the answer to everything? It's not a magic pill. I learned paracetamol is safe. So will I keep popping paracetamol in any medicine? It cannot be. For har cheez ke liye alag alag chahiye, right? So response. So please remember कि public health nutrition की जब बात करें, तो there has to be a diversified, a colorful plate that our own institutions endorse, whether it's NIN, National Institute of Nutrition, or nowadays so many of them are actually giving up evidence to say that diet diversity is not coming from grains alone. We are talking about millets, sure, but as a nutritionist, I'll do a disservice if I do not bring in fruits and vegetables, I do not bring in high quality proteins, and so on and so forth. So I think in terms of a larger solution, even for the climate, there is Eat Lancet, और आपने देखा है कितना सारा papers आया है, which tell you that vegetarian choices, या is the millets पे focus, या PDS is a very good solution, but do not limit yourself to that. That's my takeaway from this. Please allow people, whether it's non-vegetarian food, whether it's fruits and vegetables, whether it's different type of pulses, allow them to eat. And India, as of now, when we come to climate change and sustainability, is not the top ranker in causing this. Of course, there is 23% or 33%, emissions coming from the agriculture sector. That's across the board. It's not that India is sending off only emissions to the board. So remember that our dietary patterns, original dietary patterns, were immensely good. There is traditional knowledge, as Madam also explained, and those need to be utilized. So I would urge that we would put millets as one part of the solution, not the solution. Thank you.
Thanks, Shweta. I think couple of takeaways, and I had another round of questions for all of you, but I've been advised that we should, we're running late, so we'll have to end here. But I think few things that does come up, is diversification of the plate. I mean, there's obviously not one food or grain or, a part which can be the whole solution. And I think what we also heard, very different sort of perspectives, right? We need to think about the food systems. What Shubhada ji was talking about, I mean, how we're thinking about what is locally produced, whether it's maua or, whether it's jackfruit or whatever it might be, but how some of, how that's helping in nutrition within the local, through the local kitchen gardens, or what gets connected to the ICDS. And then thinking about the whole market distribution consumption, what we need to do there. And I think there's a lot to be thought through in terms of the programs itself. How do we sort of, what kind of innovation or infrastructure is needed? I know there was a lot, Mamta mentioned a lot about COP. I think the larger question on the table is where the finance is also going to come for that. So, and here in this case, if women, we're specifically going to women as entrepreneurs, what kind of finance would farmer producer companies or self-help groups, for instance, would be needed, which can help in also creating the right kind of infrastructure. And of course, data is important. There's no one panacea, but we need to think of this sort of collectively. And I think I'd like to thank all of you for really, sort of, we would have loved to ask another round of questions, but I'm, maybe over the tea break, please do, get in touch, ask questions, and because we can't do a Q&A now. So thank you very much.
Very much to our speakers for sharing with us such deep insights from your experience and giving us such a multifaceted perspective on the topic of nutrition and women. Thank you, Ruchika, for facilitating the discussions. Moving on to the next segment of our program, reflections from FOLU core partners and ambassador, I would like to invite our panelists, Dr. Vibha Dhawan, Director General TERI, Mr. Ajay Virjakar, FOLU ambassador, Dr. Sabyasachi Das, National Coordinator for RRAN. May I also invite Dr. Seth Cook, Asia Pacific Coordinator for FOLU. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our panel members. It's a real pleasure to be here today. I have to say I changed my flight just to be here, and this is probably going to be the best part of my trip. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be part of the making of this movie from a very early stage. I was able to see many versions, and as Vijay mentioned, the film has changed quite a bit over time. And every time I see it, I notice something different. It's just so rich in terms of its contents. So the film, I think, works on many different levels. On one level, it's about millets, the importance of millets for food security, nutrition, adaptation to climate change, as well as their cultural significance. On another level, it's about the role of women in agriculture and about female empowerment. A related aspect is gender roles, particularly in rural areas. On a third level, it's also about the importance of processing, mechanization, particularly to reduce drudgery, but also for economic development. And that's related to the role of technologies, particularly appropriate technologies that are well suited to the needs of rural areas. And a fourth level is marketing, entrepreneurship, and the role of women therein. In fact, women's roles as entrepreneurs. And on a final level, it's also about self-help groups, farmer-producer organizations, and other forms of collective action in agricultural value chains. So I'm very interested to hear from our panel about their reflections as well on the film and the implications particularly for their organization's work. So Ajay, let me start with you. As a farmer yourself and as the chairman of BKS, what are your thoughts, what are your reflections on the film and its many aspects and levels?
Seth, thank you for this. So when I was watching the movie, I was making some notes to come back. And I think the movie very artfully links women with millets, which is in a way saying it links diversified agriculture with millets. I would say it links sustainable agriculture with women also by that same this thing. I also think this film, for a change, brings out consumer behavior change and diets in a food systems approach bottom up. Otherwise, we are discussing about a food systems approach, which is a top-down level, which starts at the UN and then comes down. So this actually gives you a practical example of how diets can change bottom up. My personal opinion going forward is that how you can bring value, how you can increase productivity of millets. It'll be very difficult to increase productivity of millets per acre. That is enough to bring it to be competitive to other crops, but to bring value by involving chefs, by involving experts and personalities and creating a demand as a product. So I think that's where we should be focusing on, because thinking about increasing productivity so substantially that it becomes competitive with other carbohydrate or cereal crops is not going to be easy. And that's my opinion on this. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean we're talking about productivity. That is an issue, Dr. Dalwan, that I think as an agricultural scientist you know a lot about. I'm interested to hear your reflections overall on the film, but also, as a scientist and as the executive director of TERI as well.
Well, really speaking, India is in happy situations in terms of food security. And if we go back to Green Revolution, it's largely because we have adopted Green Revolution in all parts of the country. That also brings us to a couple of things. One is that it's highly energy intensive, and therefore we use water, which more or less we regard as if it's always going to be with us, and we grow wrong crops at wrong places where we should not be growing a particular crop. The other is that because the productivity, and I'll say that Green Revolution was very much needed because it saved so many from starvation deaths. But then it has negative part of it, and that was that we compromised somewhere on the nutritional security. And that is where we lost millets somewhere on the way because of their low productivity. And definitely what was very well depicted in the film was that it's so difficult to process. And therefore women at the rural level, when they have to do everything, this is an added burden on them. So therefore the ease of cooking the cereals and the shelf life, I'll also emphasize on the shelf life, because in case of millets, you have to ground it more or less fresh. The shelf life is a month or two, and therefore, if you look at the food chain, or in a way, the processed food, or even the flour that is available to us, No shopkeeper would like to keep something which will go bad in a couple of months. So somewhere, and it is not just that we had forgotten millets to be part of our diets, somewhere it is also the varieties we started growing of wheat especially, we compromised on the protein content because we wanted more yield. Or even the total biomass production, and today when I'm talking of climate change and biofuels, perhaps we have to relook at what are the crops we require. Now, why millets have become all the more important in last few years? We are talking of climate change. Now, these varieties which give us higher yield are also very sensitive to drought, temperatures, and so on. And therefore, while the farmer invests so much of money, due to any of these calamities, early rise of temperature that will impact the wheat yield, rains during just before the harvesting of paddy and so on. So therefore, it becomes a very risky business for the farmer. In many areas, we are also finding that water security or water scarcity is becoming more and more. And millets are wonder crop because you just put them in the field and they will take care of themselves. They will grow without any irrigation and so on. So therefore, it becomes a sort of insurance to the farmer that if nothing grows, they will still have millets. The other is that it's the awareness that we have started talking about the coarse grains, and as rightly mentioned, it's becoming food for the elites. And the shocking part, which I'm not very happy with, that when the millet starts from the farmer's field, they don't even get 50 rupees a kg. And if I go to Delhi market, nothing is less than 250 rupees. So it becomes 5 times the cost just in transition. But what I'm getting in Delhi market is maybe that shopkeeper is ensuring it is freshly ground, and therefore I don't have to, or rather I don't even have the opportunity that if I go to the village and I buy 10 kg, who is going to grind it for me? So therefore, this 5 times the price difference is because of that. Now, where the millets are important? I'll say yes, they are important for me, but not that much compared to the fellow citizens in the rural part. Because I eat fish, I eat chicken, therefore I'm taking care of my nutritional security. I should also worry about that it should not become that whatever little, because see their yields are low compared to wheat and rice. There is no support price for millets. And therefore, in a way, whatever they don't grow very large volumes of millets, it should not become that whatever they grow, again we take it and we eat it. That's not fair, because that is something which is for their nutritional security. So let's ensure that it remains over there and they are able to eat it. Surplus, definitely everyone can share. And the other thing where I'll say we are still failing is bringing awareness about the good part of millet, the way it is consumed. It is not that you simply make flour out of it and eat it. Most of the goodies are gone. So therefore, I feel cheated when I eat ragi biscuits and all, because all the goodies are gone. So therefore, I'm only eating ragi to convince myself, not nutritions that I should be getting. So more awareness needs to be brought about the food, how it needs to be consumed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dhawan. That was, it could have been a lecture in itself. There were so many great points there. And I hope that we can come back to some of them if there's time, such as growing the wrong crops in the wrong places, millets becoming foods of elites, the way we're consuming these grains also being important. But let's move to Sabya. Sabya, your organization, RAN, is actually at the forefront of promoting millets in many states. So let's hear from you in terms of your reflections.
Yeah. Okay. From RRA's perspective, which is into the rain-fed and then millets and this crop system, it's actually been a kind of a fusion in rain-fed areas is the most useful for the millets. Now coming to the productivity discussion that has been happening for a long time, and in February during the People's Convention of Millets, we had a session on the breaking the barriers of productivity and trying to see that whether we are comparing the same fertility where we have the rice and wheat versus the areas that millets are grown. It is in upland, there is no soil, absolutely marginal soil. So you cannot compare that. Even if you want to compare, I see that there are a lot of experiences. Probably Bibi Jan could have been said that in the productivity there is a lot of work has been done on the agronomic practices. The Guli Ragi method of which came from Karnataka and then has been done in north coast of Andhra Pradesh. We recently have done a crop cutting experiment, 20 quintals for the little millets. Amazing results. If you look at from the marginal lands. And then if you look at that millets, again millets is not millets only. It is a millets as a part of a crop system. Millets has always grown together with the other crops as well. If you look at the recently launched millet song by Binay Charul, it says that Hum Saath Mein The, all the crops were together, and therefore the whole nutrition angle is not by single millets, but also with the millets, pulses, oils sit together. So this has to be taken up in such a way that it is a millets as a crop system. The productivity can substantially be increased with a agronomic practices that needs to be supported with some of the support services, ecosystem services. You need to have a different kind of a tools and implements to actually do that kind of an agronomic practices. And all tools, implements, machineries are primarily skewed towards tractor, and I call it as a tractorization of the mechanization, right? So we need to go beyond that also. Need to come up with the small tools. We need to come up with the tools that helps the work of the woman easy, at both during the production as well as also during the harvesting and post-harvesting processing. So in our sense, in rain-fed, revitalizing rain-fed agriculture network, a lot of our organization has promoted millets over 15-20 years. We have learned from DDS also. My DDS Satish Saab was the pioneer in the millets production in the Deccan, and we learned a lot and then tried a lot of things. Then finally we looked into the 5 aspects of it, and then I will come out to all of you probably have spoken about the 4 aspects of it, that I will add the 5th aspects. Production, then your consumption, then processing, market, value chain, but don't forget about the culture. Because this culture was associated, millets has been associated with the culture of the community, and then looking at not the niche market, the producers, how these millets can all be consumed by the producers. So we call it as for a millets, this is a producer come consumer. Those who produce, they should consume first. And what are the mechanism and case of FOLU, which promotes the sustainable food system? And I think that millets crop system is very, very attached to the vision of FOLU. And I think the experiences says that we need to look at as a ecosystem, and how millet ecosystem can be supported from all the angle together.
Thank you, Sabya. Maybe one last question to follow up on what we've been discussing. So how do we encourage not only the production of millets, production and consumption of millets, but also their integration in a cropping system that Sabya mentioned? Who would like to talk to that?
So I see that there is we studied several crop system in the country. We found that it is the Akdi, Bibijan has said, and given the photographs, right? Akdi Salu in Karnataka, Navdhanya in Andhra Pradesh, Hangdi Kheti in Rajasthan, Bara Anaj in Maharashtra, Pata Paddhati in Maharashtra, Vidarbha region, Nuwa Anaj in Himachal. So we had all these cropping system earlier, which is supposed to be the climate resilience. Now for having a 9 crops together with a different varieties and a seed system, which is a government seed system, does not support this. So therefore you need to create those alternative seed system so that this kind of a cropping system can grow. So my first point is to promote this millets as a cropping system. You need to look at that what are the basics behind it, and then and to promote that this kind of a alternative support system needs to be developed. We have been working on a participatory varietal of millets, the Odisha Millet Mission, which we were part of the designing of the Odisha Millet Mission. We said that we need to look at the what are the well-performing locally adopted seeds. And now the government of Odisha has come up with a mechanism to release the seeds which are land races. So they came up with a mechanism other than the varietal release committee. They have created another mechanism called land races release varietal release committee, LVRC. So it is not only about the support systems, the creating the seed system, but also how the policy supports, enabling policies that supports this, the promotion of millets as a crop system. So enabling support policies are very, very important. I have seen that in Odisha millet, it was pushed that FPOs should be able to be part of the procurement agent. So viability of FPO can also be bring in like this. We have done thousands of recipe competitions in Odisha Millet Mission. And before Odisha Millet Mission, there was a CRMP, Comprehensive Millet Revival Program in AP, where Sunny worked on that. We tried to look at that which are the festivals that was millets were been used. So try to look at that culture, try to look at the policy implications, enabling policies to bring in, and then support system. If this works together, and then my last point, probably the Odisha model, which talks about the integration between the civil society organization, academician, and the government, that worked well. And that can actually take you to the scale that you have been talking about. In Andhra, it was also in the scale, and then we learned a lot of things from Andhra, and then moved to Odisha. And probably some of the states, 7, 8 states has actually launched a mission, but probably do not have the framework to work on that. Thank you. And probably FOLU and we can together can help them to come up with the solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabya. So clearly a whole constellation of factors need to be in place to encourage the wider production of millets, but more diverse crops more generally. Any final thoughts, Ajay or Dr. Dawan?
Hearing RRYN, my only thought is that the biggest challenge in India for increasing millet consumption and production is convincing policymakers that it can be done. That's the biggest challenge.
I'll say we also have to concentrate on research and release varieties which make them cost competitive in terms of productivity. And then, of course, it's the entire value chain, because see, it is very easy to say they have to consume themselves and the surplus should come to metros. But in metros, if the consumption has to go up, then it is also that middleman profit must be reduced, and the profits should actually go back to those who are growing it.
Well, this is, I think, a challenge for really for many crops, actually, not just millets, and not just in India. How do you get the farmers to garner a larger percentage of the value?
FPO is one such step. Yeah, definitely, FPO is one such step in that direction, and which is successful.
Absolutely. I would like to thank our distinguished panel for... Yeah.
The system of millet intensification, the method we have to promote across India. It is already proven in our area, in AP. Finger millet, they are getting 30 quintals per hectare. and little millet 22 quintals, and foxtail millet also they are getting 25 quintals with SMI method. We have to promote this method across India, wherever farmers cultivating millets. This is one thing I have to suggest. The other thing, little millet is a good food for pregnant and lactating women. It is a traditional practice. But the processing is the very difficulty. For that we have to do R&D. Like she said, one millet mixie, that kind of implements we have to provide in all the villages. Easily they can process it and consume it. That two things I want to share.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I guess we need to keep in mind that there's many different varieties of millets, right? And each have their specific requirements, but also specific benefits. So, in closing, I'd like to thank our distinguished panel for their thoughts, and once again, a great pleasure to be here today.
Thank you very much, speakers, for sharing your thoughts and insights on strengthening the millets value chain while highlighting the inherent aspect of culture. I would now like to open the floor for discussion. So I invite the director of the film, Arjun Swaminathan, and FOLU India Senior Manager, Soni, to take any questions and answer them. Thank you.
Thanks, Pallavi. I can, I'm getting a very good aroma of food from the side, so I don't want to keep you, become a barrier in between the food and the discussion. And I think Arjun also will share the same sentiments. So first, I think I would request Arjun to share his experiences while making this movie, maybe 2-3 minutes. And if you have any pressing, burning questions, 1 or 2 we can take, and then we can close this event and grab the fritters from there. Yeah, over to Arjun.
Thank you. So I would actually like to start, taking questions if you have any, so that whatever I want to say will encompass within that. So if you have any questions, please, you can ask if you do.
Very quickly, any burning questions?
What was the role played by men in this millet value chain? What did you see in that? Because, they should be having some role, and how was it? Was it supportive, or what did they do? Just want to know.
It was only two things. It was either supportive or non-interfering. So which was great, right? Because you can actually see, there is a slow change that you can actually see. We are getting less and less patriarchal in certain, areas. So it is a very slow change. But it's very subtle, but it is happening, and it is wonderful. And like, always thought, this is something that, it is, as you learn as you grow up, through my paternal grandmother. So she made sure that all her sons knew how to cook, clean the house, everything. So all household work the children, the sons could do. So it was not something that it was only relegated to certain genders. So it was something that you grew up with. And, if you see something outside of it, it would be surprising, at least for me. So that was when you went out and, started, working in the sector, working in the villages, in the forest areas, you would see these little things, these little nuances, and you would understand, like, this is what's happening here. But in a very nice way, that there is a change that is happening.
Arjun, I think one thing it's a request to you. Basically, personally, I would like to hear a response towards two major concerns which emerged during the panel discussion. Mamta and Shweta. They were trying to say that it's basically, the film was just shedding lights towards the women side of this overall millet or its value chain, right? So their point is very clear, like it's not only women's responsibility. Do you see that any chance when millet is, I should have asked to the earlier panel as well, any chance when the millet production increasing, this responsibility is going to shift from the shoulder of women to men? Because you are with them for long, that's why.
When I shared this idea before we started making this film, I was speaking to a friend of mine. She works in public health, and I was telling her about the idea of making women empowering film. She said, "Stop! Don't do it." And like, why? I mean, what? It was a surprise. And she said, "We already have enough on our plates. Don't make a film where we have to take more responsibility, to promote or grow or process this entire chain of millets." But when if the roles are well defined and shared, like Sucharita said, that it's a completely it's not a man's role, it is not a woman's role. If it's a general fluidity in terms of what roles each of them play, then I think it's as millet production increases, as consumption increases, as market grows, I think there will be roles where men and women can slot themselves as a shared responsibility and as a shared work force there. Did it answer your question?
I think in this moment we should not ask a question back,
Not when the food is open.
So maybe I don't see any hands here. Maybe Arjun, why don't you spend like 2-3 minutes talking? Vijay sir already mentioned that how we started, and I remember when we started like in February or something discussing about this idea and how it has been taken the shape what we have seen now, and how that whole filmmaking process was for you.
Well, this idea actually came about when I made an article on Akadi Salu, what Sabya mentioned and what Bibijan also mentioned, the diverse cropping system which is happening, which is in Karnataka. So they met a farmer who grew about 16 varieties of crops on 1 acre of land, and which took care of his his home consumptions and of course to put it out in the market. So I actually went there to tell a story about him as a farmer, but while we were making the story, I realized that it was his mother who actually played a more important role than him. I mean, of course, he did the hard work in the farming and all, but his mother did the harder job. So those seeds that he was using to farm were the seeds that his mother had got during her wedding. So there was a custom, or there is still a custom in certain parts in South India. I don't know much about how it is in North, but in South India, when there is a marriage, the bride receives a gift from the parents and from her in-laws, a sari, and the 4 sides of the saris are filled with seeds, and a knot is tied, and then a gift is given. So those seeds are the gift. That is what they have to maintain, keep, preserve. So the in-laws would tell her, whatever it is, even if there is famine, do not use these seeds. These are the ones that are going to keep you, in good stead later. So she kept them, she used them, she farmed them. And today her son continues to use it. And she was, while I was speaking with her, she would say, I would find some seed somewhere, some pumpkin seed, I would just plant it somewhere along the way. And if somebody wants it, they can just pluck it and go. I found this seed of this tree, I planted somewhere else. So you could see that, she was playing both of a preserver and a nurturer. And from there, this seed, this took a seed, this kind of stemmed into an idea like, yes, women play an extremely critical role in the culture, in the preservation, in nurturing, in taking forward, a food system. So, and millets was something that a lot of people were speaking about. And when we talk about resilience of millets and how strong they are, in terms of climate, in terms of nutrition that they give, they make you strong. And you look at, women, they play the exact similar role. So why not draw parallels and look at this? So our discussion with FOLU began, and it was a fun time making the film, and extremely supportive, and extremely non-interfering in terms of how the film needs to be or what. The feedback was just right, and it was good in terms of how the film was conceived, how it was viewed, and the feedback given, how we took it forward. And today we are here, all of us celebrating women and millets. So I I really thank FOLU India, Jayhari, Soni, Mr. Vijay, Kumar. Thank you all, Pallavi. So everyone here and a big thanks to the farmers who came, who were in the film, and RRA and Vasan. So thank you all for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Arjun. I think in terms of closing, I would also like to thanks, because he was very modest, saying that our feedback was easy, but it was multiple iterations, and he bear with us with that. Thanks for that, and very happy to collaborate with you as a part of this. And one point I think I want to close by saying what our colleague earlier mentioned about where did Arjun see men in this whole scene. And we have asked the same kind of question sometime earlier when we went to visit Mandla, and our colleagues' wonderful work in women empowerment there. And then I think some of the people who are mentioned in the film itself, I think we need to also see that in the name of, and I heard from Mamta as well talking, we should not be overburdening women in the name of conservation and in the name of new things, which is a very important question basically in terms of gender justice, which has been in the discourse for a long time. So with that note, I think we'll close this. Thanks very much, and over to you, Pallavi.
Thank you very much, Soni. Thank you very much, Arjun, for such candid responses and such interesting anecdotes. Thank you. I would actually now like to take this opportunity to invite the entire cast and crew of this film on stage for a group photo and a resounding round of applause from the audience, please. Please come up on stage. Thank you very much for joining us today on this very special evening. I hope that you leave here today inspired to put in greater energies into the brilliant work that all of you are already doing. Thank you once again. Please join us for some refreshments on the side now. Thank you.